Welcome to Rising Woman Leaders. I'm your host, Meredith Ram, and I believe the time has come for women to share their gifts, their voice, and their stories. I love seeing women spiritually and financially empowered, thriving in their life's work, and doing what they love every day. I've gathered a community of women living their dreams to tell us their stories and inspire us to step into more courage, self-love, and feminine leadership. If you like this podcast, use the hashtag RisingWomanLeaders. Follow me on Instagram at Meredith Ram and sign up for email updates at risingwomanleaders.com to get all the new and inspiring content. Now get cozy with a journal and a cup of tea. I hope you enjoy today's show. I'm here today with Lisa Devine, who is a wife, mother, spiritual counselor, and owner of the Mary Magdalene. She offers angel intuitive readings and past life regression sessions for clients around the globe. She considers it her great honor to assist those who are ready to birth the next chapters of their lives and to awaken their natural gifts of prophecy, healing, and supreme manifestation. Thanks for being here, Lisa.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and gosh, I think the place I'd like to start is just how did you come on this path? And I also want to ask a lot about Mary Magdalene, but whatever feels present for you,
yes.
Like how you first opened to her or how you first opened to your abilities or your spiritual path. I'd love to just with that.
Let me just, oh my gosh, there's so many things and everything is sparkly around me. I have to tell you, I just want to reach out and say everything. We will touch on all of that for sure, but I'd love to give you just my story and kind of really quick my perspective, because then it will allow you to understand a lot about what I've been through and who's come in and my path. Which will then again start to help other people be able to understand theirs. So for me, I was a very empathic little girl, a very sweet little thing, very innocent. Grew up with two very young parents, and I had three brothers. All four of us were born within 5 years. There wasn't a lot of money, and my parents were young, and they kind of kept us reined in when we were younger. We were in not a great neighborhood, bars on our windows, and there was a lot of stuff going around us. They tried to keep us kind of, reined in and protected. But in any situation, usually as a child, you wander into some different traumas, you wander into some experiences and different circumstances, which is what I went through when I was 6 or 7, had some massive traumas, things that showed up in my life, at a neighbor's house, one in specific that really just radiated for me. So what happened was with me over time is that I went through a very dramatic life of lots of beautiful things happening. My days were wonderful. I have a lot to be grateful for, but I also was rotting from the inside out for decades. And really within the last few years, I have really come all the way through enough to be able to talk about what that was. And so when I talk about my story, and when I talk about these things that have happened to me, I also want to let people know that I come from a very different perspective that I'd love to explain to you, because then it allows it to be able to see my life as, really beautiful rather than seeing it from the victimized place. I have this philosophy that we are all living in this fairy tale or very ethereal life, and that there are poison apples, and there are, or GMOs at least, and there are those dark times where we're walking through the woods and we have no idea where to go, and we have these spells of depression, and we go through all this stuff. But in fairy tales, the light always wins at the end. There's always, some kind of beautiful force that comes into the middle of your road when you're down and on your knees and guides you through. And there's purpose in what you went through because it made you brave for later. So what I try to do is I try to look at my life from this ethereal lens. And that really keeps me moving forward and seeing things with grace and with beauty and seeing the purpose and the meaning. But yes, going through my life, I really was with this gift of empathicness that I carried, and being able to see spirits and understand and feel people's energy all the time, and then not dealing with very deep traumatic things that had occurred to me. I really just kind of was wandered off on this very far little road, like a lot of us have, and then was introduced in these beautiful moments of my life of studying past life regression and becoming a yoga teacher and learning to breathe, and Mary Magdalene swooping into my life and talking to me over time, and introducing herself. So there was this beauty along the way where I was picked up constantly and pulled to keep carrying on and walking and continuing on. And I know that many people, and yourself included, we have a similar, we all have the same story when it comes to, this depth and this pain and this suffering, but also this really extreme beauty and an ending for all of us where the light is always illuminated at the end.
Yes.
Through every journey.
Yes. And do you believe that in some level your soul chose those experiences for certain reasons? Or
100%. 100% now that I can fully look through that lens, as I would love to say 100% of the time, but it's a lot of the time. We won't say 100%. But yes, I look back now and I can even look at very, specific instances, and I completely understand why that, how that took me to where I am. I had, even with the trauma, even with, I had an out of body or near death experience of hemorrhaging after I had my second child, my daughter. I had it was like many, many little bits and pieces of my life were just so dramatic and volatile and on the verge of death, and then my body falling apart for decades. But then you look back and you say, you know what, it was all worth it. It was all stuff that needed to happen for me to awaken and understand how to transcend this, and then be able to go back and not be scared of the dark and take people's hands and be able to walk them over that same threshold. Yes. Into being able to see from an ascended point of view, or, from an illuminated point of view, or being able to see the purpose in yourself and your soul's path.
Yes. Yeah. And so I know, unfortunately, like childhood trauma, abuse, physical or sexual, it's very common. And
very common.
I wonder, and a lot of times people shut it down or don't go there or live their lives kind of blocking it out. And I just wonder if you could tell us, like, what helped you heal?
That's so beautiful. To be able to go there and, yes, let's give people some tangible ways to do this. I had a very interesting way. Spirit works with me in a way where they kind of like almost just throw me down and right into the whole big mess of it. So I don't really have the opportunity a lot of times to ease into healing. It was kind of, it's like pushed on me. And so I had this very interesting experience, and I can tell you the exact date. It was December 19th of 2016, so about a year and a half ago, where all of a sudden, it was like somebody shut a light down, or like a light switch down in my head. And I couldn't, all that normal chatter of, what are you going to have for dinner? Or what are we going to do? All those little tiny baby things that you're thinking of during the day. I had my 2 kids with me. I was getting things cooking and moving and everything. And all of a sudden there was this just quietness, this hush over my mind. And the only 2 things that I could see in that moment were divine spirit. They were just surrounded by me, around me, right there, totally present. So I could see that. And on the other hand, the other thing at the exact same time, simultaneously, that I could see was my hate for myself and all of this old, just, muddled and rooted down old belief and, lifetimes of muck that was just kind of in there, this perspective that I couldn't quite let go of. And when they gave me this experience of being able to see both of them in so much contrast of either this amazing holiness and this other self-hate, it started to make me that took me on this journey through a lot of writing, and a lot of facing my shadow, which we can talk about as well. It took me on this journey of, I can choose which perspective I'd like to see out of. This is very clear for me. I can look this way or I can look this way. And I get it. This one way is like, I can pretend I'm a victim, but is it worth it to be a victim for, is it worth it to tell yourself a lie so that you have this cool story to tell someone in a bar or something? Like, the people that I'm trying to impress wouldn't be interested in that story anyway. So, it really was this monumental experience of me. And it did take a long time to evolve over time to be able to see and peel back each place of my life that I had said, you are not enough. You are in danger. You weren't worth it. You weren't whatever. And really peel that back and realize that was not my voice. I learned how to connect with my inner child and have a really beautiful and blossoming relationship with her. And in my fairy tale, she, I found her in the depths, the deepest chambers in my heart, and went and gave her true love's kiss, and saved myself. So there's the beautiful experience of connecting with the inner child. There's a beautiful experience of writing. There's being able to change and look at this new perspective of how you're not a victim, but that your abuse has purpose, it has meaning, that you were called to do something, walk something important. And also, I think that the one biggest way that people can really connect is to take a look at their shadow, is to introduce to themselves to their shadow, which a lot of people associate with, you're going into doing dark stuff, or you're going to look at all this fear that you have, and I'm not strong enough to do that. I don't want to look at the shadow. The shadow, though, isn't darkness. The shadow is really your true self. It's really the truth of who you are. It's like looking in this magic mirror and being able to ask yourself and, ask this mirror, what is the truth of this? What really did occur here? And, and why? What was the purpose of this? And how can I bring this forward? And how can this serve me rather than, limit me for the rest of my life?
Mm-hmm.
And it really comes with a will. It has to come from, working with a lot of different people. I've noticed that what it really needs to be at the root of everything, you have to have the will to change. You have to be ready to say, I'm ready now. I'm grown enough, and this isn't serving me anymore, this story and this perspective. And now I'm going to, I'm ready, and I have that energy and that fuel and that fire to make this a different story, one that inspires.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And from my experience, bringing in the higher forces. So I know you do a lot of work with angels and masters. And can you tell us about how these higher forces have helped you in just your life, your healing journey, and also now you work with other people. So what is that?
Yes. Oh my gosh. I mean, it's so interesting because throughout my life, some of this really difficult stuff that I've gone through was not having any understanding of how to deal with this kind of a gift. So I love talking about this now, because now it's like I have the system. I'm connected with the divine spirit, but I'm not scared of something jumping out at me, or the old ways of having to work with this gift. It's so beautiful to be able to connect with angels and masters. What happened with focusing with these spirits in particular is that Mary Magdalene came into me when I was studying past life regression. I am an advanced trained regression therapist. And my teacher was this very incredibly high level teacher that had a lot, which I did not know, but she had a lot of experience with working with people who were past lives of being, in the time of Jesus, and understanding a lot of, just had this holy vibe, there was a lot of her connecting with that kind of energy. And I was not aware of her, but I do remember bits and pieces of being introduced to her when I was younger. And when somebody had told me that I asked about seeing her on a movie. And so I asked my mother, who was that woman? And she said, she was a prostitute. And I remember immediately wanting to throw up. And I had no idea why. I just thought that maybe I was sick, but had this immediate just disgust. And so other than that, I've always had this beautiful love for Jesus and this pull, but not a religious background. So I didn't know what I was studying, just had that holy love. Anyway, she came in during this time and started to really connect with me. And then she was speaking through me, through meditation very easily and coming through a lot. She actually ended up naming my business the Modern Magdalene, which it took me over a year to even put up, because I found it so I would be judged for that name, or what if people were thinking that I was calling myself the Modern Magdalene, and I had, wasn't ready for that. So she came in and really groomed me to be, to come into my womanhood. At the same time as that regression therapy, I uncovered this clearing. There was this clearing done on myself that was so huge that I came into class the next day, and all of a sudden, since then, I was able to see these beautiful little orbs, these little see-through orbs floating around people and animals and children, and always in nature. And so it was, I didn't know what they were, but it would look like a little waterfall was coming through. And then over time, it started to get more and more pronounced. And then I got very used to it, just sort of knowing that when I was out in a beautiful, around very awake and vibrant people, that they would come in, whenever I was in nature, they would come in. And I didn't think anything of it until that moment on December 19th, when 2016, when I was having that moment of seeing two very separate perspectives and nothing else. They started over that time. That was the moment that opened up this kind of awakening that I've been in the last year and a half. And then they began to, during that time, start to talk to me and introduce themselves as the angelic realm, and begin to come through even more visually as well. So it was a 10-year period of having them kind of floating around. And in this year and a half, they said to me at one point, they kept saying, this is spirit school. I would go really deep into this meditation. I'd go really deep into this dance, or really deep into this prayer. And they would come in and say, this is spirit school. They would begin to talk to me. And they would begin to tell me about, bring me back to a moment that I just wanted to shun out, or something that I just didn't want to look at a different way, or something that I just needed to get over. And they would be with me and be in this experience while I was having like a divine breakdown over and over. They would just be with me and they'd take me through. And at one point they said, after one of these sessions, they said, this is spirit school, and now it's time for you to take this to other people, and to help them to be able to get divine guidance and divine perspective on what it is they're going through in their life, and how they would like to rebirth and transcend and, fulfill their destiny at the highest possible level.
Wow.
Yeah.
Such a gift to be able to tap into those realms.
It is. It really has been a really, I feel so honored. And I also feel it's very interesting, because for so long I felt so flawed by it, because I didn't have control over it. And so I was just so imprinted from the negative and not having the ability to handle it, that I never saw it as a beautiful thing. And I really, in the last few years, have embraced it and been able to own that gift. And now I look at it like, how did I ever see that in another way? You know, how did I ever look at that like I was broken, but these are the things that we do, you know, with our mind, and these are the things that we're ultimately able to and, you know, ready to transcend, which is really what is very exciting about this time in life. I'm sure you see this too, that not only are we as sisters and as friends and as family, you know, we're in this time where we're able to really like rise up and see beyond what we ever were able to see beyond before. And we're seeing it with our clients and with people around us. And it is so inspiring. It gets me so motivated and excited. Like, this is our time. This is what we went through our past for. This is what we went through other lifetimes for. This is a culmination of so much, you know, sacrifice, so much pain, and so much also this grooming of our gifts at the, you know, over lifetimes, which is so profound to be in this moment right now and watch each other and help each other and support each other. It gets me giddy.
Yeah. There's something about the awakening right now, and this time being the ripeness for Mary Magdalene to come back, to have her name be cleared, and also for all of us to be able to, like, I even notice it with my partner sometimes, like in some places where we used to like get in a little bit of a tiff or a difficult place, like we can suddenly like when this happens, it's so beautiful, but it's like we take a moment and breathe and realize like one of us will just like take full responsibility or something like that. And it's like,
yeah.
And like, this is what I saw happen. And then the other person will do the same and just feel like, wow, we totally cleared that. And like,
I know. It's miraculous stuff. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And the angels, for me, that the angels coming into, like the angels being visual for me for 10 years, and then now being auditory, and channeling, you know, a lot of their message. It just makes me stay in this miraculous mindset all the time right now, because I'm seeing it, that we're transcending and we're coming out into this new realm where we can ask for what we want. We can not do the same habits that we were doing before. We don't have to be, you know, holding on to our old stuff. We're moving past it. It's happening. And the angels would like me to mention, now that we're having this conversation, this one big reminder of what they came to me in the beginning and said. So I didn't understand about angels, just like I was as much as anybody else when I first, you know, kind of found out they were angels. I had as much experience as anyone else. Like, I didn't even know who archangels were, what they were, or what Archangel Michael was. I didn't know who he was, but I knew of angels, and I've always loved this idea. But when they started to really come in and speak to me, and some of them were coming in very specifically, this is this one, and they were introducing themselves, what they really made me understand, and what I'd love to give to the listeners here today, is that angels are beyond miraculous. You know, they are able to pull out divine will at the highest caliber. There is no limitation that they cannot reach, or that what they cannot, you know, unfold for you. However, they also are very respectful of your free will. Angels do not come in and interfere when people do not ask for them. You know, if you're trying to hold on to things and say, I have to do this by myself, this is my intention, maybe stop and ask yourself, why? Why do I have to do this on my own? Did someone teach me that I have to do this on my own? It would be more noble, because there is no God who is standing up there saying, you cannot use these angels, you have to, you have to do this on your own. So for people who really want to start introducing them, and I hope that everyone will want to start introducing angels in their life, the best way to do it is to start saying, hey, angels, I invite you in. You can help me. I'm surrendering, you know, my hold on this in any way that I'm holding. Help me to release, help me to surrender, and I will be here. And I will allow it. And by doing that, they can start to develop this communication with you where how they will start is they'll start to give you these synchronicities, these little, 3-digit numbers, whenever you look at the clock or whenever you thought of an idea and the song came on, and they'll play with you like that. And what they're doing when they give you those synchronicities is they're asking, hey, you can see me, right? I'm telling you that I'm here. So ask for me to come in, invite me to come in that moment, and, help with whatever was on your mind at that moment, whatever plan or desire you had when they showed you that sign. Ask them, hey, can you get me closer to this desire? Could you shed some awareness and give, shed some light on something I've been struggling with? Can you ease this situation? Can you let my kids go to freaking bed? Can you help me to, find a nutritious meal that's really cheap and easy to make in 15 minutes?
Or the parking spots.
Yes, the parking spot all the time. And so, it's interesting because in the beginning, I felt like I was cheating by having them in my life, like I was a cheater. And that no, you shouldn't be using them. And then I'm like, why? You think God would dangle these angels and, angelic forces in front of your face and not ask you to use it? So I had to really look at what was that mindset of mine that was judging that it was a wrong thing to use them, or that I was crazy or bad or, cheating or whatever it is. And I'm just inviting for people to do that as well and invite them in, because if I can give you one message today, it's that you are surrounded by divine presence in all of its capacities, in goddesses and angels and in spirit guides from other times, and you can be introduced to them, you can see them, you will be able to find your own way to connect with them, but I promise you it can be done. It's just about inviting them in.
Yeah. That is a huge, huge piece. For these, people listening to take that away of just we can ask for help. And I remember reading that too in a book about how that we have total free will and they will not intervene until
that's how much they love us.
Consciously welcome them.
Yes, that's how much they love us, is that they respect our divine, free will, and that they want us to be able to, they will not disrespect and cross that line.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I'm curious, when you do an angel reading or a session with someone, are you relaying to them the question and then hearing answers and then giving that to the client? How does that work?
Yeah, that's a good question. So what I do beforehand is I go into my own meditation and I do sort of a pre-reading. So it's almost like the angels can just fill me in on what's going on, even though I don't know from the person yet what their intention is or sometimes who they are. So I do a little pre-reading of what would the angels like to connect with them on? What am I seeing as their present reality? What is going on here? And basically kind of shedding light on where I would, the angels and I would like to look at in their life and how we can pull them through on the path. And then when I'm sitting in front of them, I have that information that I relay to them as part of this reading portion of it. But then I also have them interact with me about, okay, give me more questions and let's talk about what comes up when I bring this up. Why is that difficult to do or whatever? And we basically shed through all of those barriers together until we can walk through, so that we've removed some of those mountains so that you can walk forward with grace and beauty and ease and purpose and meaning and support. And, basically it's just the way that the angels show me is that they're giving me, I have a background in psychology and I did a lot of social work. And I also have this long list of experience with a lot of the spiritual realm and working with spirits and working with these other dimensions. And so basically it just becomes like an ascended counseling session, if you will. It's kind of seeing it from, instead of going through, things in the way of therapy where you're just talking about it. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but a lot of times that will leave you in a circle because you kind of can't get that bad taste out of your mouth. And I found that working with the angels just pulls all the way up from an ascended point of view. When you can see things from up high, like the angels can, then you're looking down on it saying, oh, I can see the purpose because I can see the future right now. I'm being told something that's going to prophesize in my life. And so now I can see why I'm going through this. So now I can go through this with my head up, with my crown back on, in a graceful way, rather than, I need to get through this and I'm going to pull through this. Yes, that's beautiful will that you have, but also we could make it a little easier. We could look at it from an ascended place and we can go through that. So I would love to give you an example. It's almost like that ascended point of view is almost like I try to do this all day long. It's part of this fairy tale philosophy that I had. It's sort of like using this fairy tale philosophy and walking through it throughout the day. But I'm giving you it in a session where we go into this really sacred, beautiful, there's candlelight around my home and it smells like geranium, and we go into this ethereal space. And then it's kind of like being able to see that from that ascended point of view, people become addicted to it. And then they want to start bleeding that into the rest of their life. And that's what I'm hoping to do, is sort of walk this story that is your fairy tale. You have the ability to guide yourself and to change your ending at any time. So what I do throughout the day to keep me always under this spell of this fairy tale of mine is I keep beautiful music on and I light candles throughout the house. So I feel peaceful. So I don't feel any of the fear. And I, keep things, sage is burning throughout, after each session. Everything is very intentional. I try to make little decisions and little, choices based on, moving up into this higher realm and, eating better foods, because who doesn't want to, in your fairy tale, eat foods that are, a strawberry that you picked from the earth? It's just so much more fairy tale than it is, the greasy, whatever that doesn't make me feel good and it lessens my gifts, So keeping myself in that space allows me to make those choices that take me more connected, make me more connected with spirit. And then you end up becoming, making this a lifestyle and making this a whole new reality for me, becomes like my reality. And that's kind of really the message that I want to get through with these sessions is I want to take you to a place that you may have never experienced or felt before, or maybe you have before and you loved it. You were in Shavasana at the end of a yoga session, or you were in a little meditation, or you have this session or whatever it is. I want you to remember how good you feel here and how important you feel and how worthy you are and how beautiful you are and how needed you are. And I want you to understand your own flavor and see your own soul and be at the altar of it. Mm-hmm. And I want that to inspire you to radiate into your daily life and let that become your life, become your reality. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And there's little tiny choices in the day we can make. A lot of people will say, things like, well, you work from home, so you get to do this all day. That's very true. But there's also little ways that I make a major commitment. Like, for example, before we were talking today, I went outside. I was trying to clean my house and make it feel beautiful so I can talk to you in my highest and best, cleanest space. And I went outside and I had given my daughter yesterday a whole bunch of glitter I have all this hot pink glitter and red glitter and it's all over the place. Now, the old me would feel super irritated about it because what I did was I stepped in it and then walked through the house and then it was, all over the place. And before it'd be, oh my God, now it's all over and I have to get this clean before I talk to her. Instead, I went, wait a minute, like, who doesn't want glitter like all through their house, So basically there was this beauty of, well, yes, now there's like fairies with me because I just, trumped glitter all through the house, cleaned it up, put on candles, and it actually was the most beautiful little, perfect little example of you can either look at it like this or you can look at it like, hey, there was a little miracle for me. Everyone needs a little something shiny before they go and do the priestess work, you know? And so I just little moments like that. And I know you teach this very thing. You live this exact way of being able to be at the altar of your soul all the time, being able to take each moment, even if it feels like Groundhog's Day, and saying there's something sacred about this right now. And that makes being able to change those little moments into starting to really evolve those big moments and fill them with light.
Yes, really allowing life.
Absolutely.
Not needing to like put up our hard resistance to all those things that can
and we don't have the energy for that anymore. You know, nobody has the energy for that anymore. We are focused on a lot right now. There's a lot going on politically. There's a lot of stuff that we really need to keep our eye on, and we need to keep ourselves really centered. So we don't have time to go into like this resistance and this stuff anymore. So it's calling for all of us to transcend it. You know, we have a lot on our plate as women, as people. We have a lot going on, you know, that does need to be acknowledged. But we can find a way to see it in the most beautiful of ways.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, beautiful. I love hearing all of that. And I want to ask you more about Mary Magdalene. And
yes,
for anyone listening who only has the context of her through the Catholic Church of being a whore or prostitute, like what light can you shed on just her story, who she is, what you have learned from her, all of that?
Oh my gosh, we'd have to do a podcast on like what I haven't learned from her, because that's the only thing we would have time for, which is nothing. What I can say is this, like from when she came into my life, and she goes in, it's interesting, she goes into, and it comes in and out in phases. And she came in a few years ago. It was almost like she was grooming me for this spirit school that I had going, this awakening in this last year and a half. She kind of pulled out right before I went through this. It was like she was getting me ready. And I wish that even at the time that I was really channeling her years ago, every day, and just, you know, merging with her, I felt like I was. I still didn't even understand her depth. I'm still unraveling the depth of her, because she is so like symbolic of the divine feminine to me, from the way that I understand her. And I've read a lot of material, much channeled material, and people who have written books where they have uncovered the Gnostic, you know, readings and scriptures, and then many conversations with people who are of the Catholic faith, which again, is a beautiful thing as well. But you know, we have this idea or people had this idea that she was a prostitute, which she was not. It wasn't even mentioned that she was. And in fact, a few years ago, the Vatican came out and said that reputation of hers needed to be pulled, and it should not have come out in that way. And that she was named the first apostle of the apostles. So just so you know, if you're Catholic and you have a stronghold, I'm telling you now something that they're coming out and saying. But from this material that other people have that is channeled, it is very clear that she was a very high priestess, that she was an equal to Jesus, that they were doing, I believe, to be doing very deep philosophical and tantric work, and understanding spiritual concepts that were the beautiful embracing of like the yin and the yang, and the divine feminine and the divine masculine, and that neither one of their teachings would be as influential without each other, and what they were as models for humans, and the faith that we can hold, and the love and forgiveness that we can be. And she really just embodies that in, you know, at the highest caliber. You know, sometimes I stop and I try to emulate her. If I'm really having trouble getting into my fairy tale, I kind of do like, what would she be right now? how would she stand right now? Would she be slumped over the way I am right now? Would she just give up, or would she say, I can see beyond this. Let me see beyond this. So I use her constantly. But she was coming in very strongly, and I was having these moments with her. I was having memories of hers, and I was waking up in the middle of the night. I would be just drenched in tears, sobbing from, remembering Yeshua or Jesus or whatever you want to call him, his profile by candlelight, just looking over and seeing his face by candlelight and memorizing what he looked like and seeing the fire behind him and just waking up sobbing. So I would wake up very confused, like, what are these memories? Are these my memories? Are these hers? Are they? And so for a lot of time, I had this brain activity of trying to decipher, what does this mean? What does this mean? Until I just really surrendered to, I don't know what this means. Like, I don't know why she's coming to me. I don't know why she's talking, but you know what? So much more comes in when I don't try to figure it out. And so then I kind of let her just be in me. While she'd be in me, or if I would have this memory, I would write it down and say, maybe someday I need to understand why. But in the meantime, she was just giving me this, what I think is kind of like the angels, this ascended perspective of love, this ascended understanding of teaching even when people are judging you, this ascended, nurturing that she would be able to give and offer, and compassion, and this high level understanding, but not thinking that she was better than anybody. And so for me, it was like a matter of drop. What does this mean that she's coming into you? And what is she saying that other people need to hear? What is she emulating that I could emulate and help other people to learn? Because from my understanding now, Mary Magdalene is starting to wake up and live again through the essence of every woman on this planet. She's coming through the moon. And so there's many rituals and things that we can tap on and touch on by doing these certain rituals. We can waken her within us. She is not just coming through to me. She's coming through to me at an earlier time to tell you she wants to awaken in you as well. So with this business, this idea that I have in the future is really starting this community with the Modern Magdalene, which is really, are you a Modern Magdalene? And what does that mean for you? And join me, and let me hear how that works through you. How does she move through you? How does she dance through you? And let's all give her these beautiful experiences all over the planet of her being alive again in a time where she is not judged, she is not put as inferior, where we let her shine again. I think that wouldn't that be a beautiful blessing to be able to give her? And wouldn't that heal all of the time since her? Wouldn't that change all of that, all of those years of women and persecution and, this unequalness and this dominating and this all these other things and dark things that have shown up through life? Wouldn't this heal a lot of that by all of us bringing her back to life within ourselves?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the piece that will heal the collective. And the divine feminine that wants to come forward right now to restore the balance.
And anybody who has an issue with, their church or somebody saying this is the way it was, it's okay to question that. It's okay to question and say, what is she for me? What do I feel like she was? Who was she?
Yes.
There is no one who has any kind of information on you that you can't tap into yourself. There is no way to connect, that the divine only connects through a certain church or a certain person. It's not true. So really be okay to ask yourself the question, what does she mean to me?
Yes.
And who was she? Do your research. Yeah. Ask her, invite her in. And
and when you hear things, ask yourself, how does this feel in my body? Whether looking at the sources of where we hear things and just seeing what feels right and true for you. And I know a lot of those channeled works that I've read of Mary, it's feels so true in my body. It's just like, yes.
I said to myself, when I hear some of this stuff, I say, it's either that someone's making this up, fine. But if they were making this up, then they are so evolved that I will follow them anyway. Like I will follow their nonsense then, because whether it's real or not, whether it was her or not, we have to get past that question, and we have to listen to what is this message? This message is gold. This is such absolute gold and such beauty. And it feels like the sigh of relief. You can live your life like this. Yes. This is possible to be human and to be able to live with this perspective. It's true.
Yes.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Right.
Well, I only have like one or two more questions I want to ask, but one of them that I wanted to bring up is about your path as a mother, and just how has that journey been for you? And I know you've had, challenges with son and just different pieces. If you want to just share a little about what you've learned in motherhood.
Yes. Motherhood is, I think for most women, it's like the trip of the life, I had my son was born first, and he was born with something, like you mentioned, called bilateral microtia, which means that my son was born, he did not have ears, no physical ears, no openings, no ear canal, no hole. So just a couple nubs of skin on each side of his head where ears would be. And so I cannot get into the growth that made me, the woman that made me stand into, that I had to stand into to be his mother, because to be that kind of a child's mother, and he is extraordinary being. I knew that I had to step up and be the best that I could be, and that really was the reason that also throws you down a few notches and makes you deal with all of your old stuff, because to do this mothering work, you've got to heal all of your own past wounds. Both of my kids have made me deal with the darkest of my dark. My daughter when she was born, I ended up having this really crazy out-of-body experience of hemorrhaging. At that time, this was almost 8 years ago, I was really at my lowest point, one of my lowest points, and I really was okay with leaving the planet at this time. And I had this voice come in while I was having this out-of-body experience. So out here on the right side of my body, dangling above myself and looking at her, this little infant body who was ripped from my arms, thrown on this little metal table. And she sat there looking at me while I was hemorrhaging. And I'm having this experience with this guide of mine, this male Native American guide is saying to me, do your children need you to be in your physical form for them to be who they came here to be? And I never answered that question, but I zipped into my body really quick and came back in. And I knew at that time that I wasn't at this, really evolved state or anything, but I knew at that time that I had come very close to leaving, but I had a very strong purpose in mothering. And these two children are both empathic. They both can see angels the way that I can. My daughter will mimic and emulate my depression when I have depression. So that's very difficult for me because I have to go through my things quickly so I can help her to come out of it. So as challenging and as, as I have to put a lot of percentage of focus on my children, but at the same time that teaches me how to lead this next generation. And I do believe that I am going to start writing about putting some more focus on mothering and how to raise empathic kids or crystal children or indigos or whatever you're calling it these days. But I do think that there is something around these new souls that are coming in the world. And any of you who are mothers listening to this, you know that your children, if you're listening to this podcast, then I know that you have these types of children. They are here to do big work, and they require us to be at our very, at our highest awareness. And they also need us to fail. It's all part of mothering, is not doing it perfect, because if they see you as perfect, they start to see themselves as something's wrong with them. So they have to see you fail. You have to be able to communicate constantly to them what you're going through, but also on a kid version of it. And helping them, giving them, fueling them with a very good spiritual life, and that doesn't mean they have to sit and meditate all the time, but why not? Why not sit with them in the beginning of the day or the end of the day and close your eyes and ask them to breathe and to move into that space? Why not do a little yoga and giggle? Why not ask them if they saw that angel out of the corner of their eye, or if they felt something weird when I said that? Why not introduce them to life beyond the veil that we see things through, and see if we can start stretching them before they have to go through a lot of life like we did, to be able to find themselves.
Wow.
That would be the gift, that I could offer you with them. But they have been my greatest gurus. And sometimes I have felt very battered by being a mother. But the joy on the other end of it, and the gratitude I have for being chosen for this role, and knowing that if they chose me, I know that I can handle it. And, now that I look back, I'm going, geez, you know what? I've handled this pretty darn well. They're good kids. They're seeing, they're moving, they're kind, they're compassionate. And so that gives me the drive to keep doing that for myself as well. It's a beautiful, tangible, back and forth, reciprocal kind of love with children.
Yeah.
And marriage too. We have to do the same thing with my marriage. I've been with my husband for 17 years. Lovely relationship, and so holy and beautiful and blessed. And also, you have to go through some really deeply struggling things, but keeping that divine, ethereal perspective on it. Like, look at us. In the midst of us, we're hating each other in this moment, but look at us, how beautiful we are, all alone on a dark path, but we're walking on either side of the path. But guess what? We'll come back together after this, and we'll walk right back on this path together.
Yeah.
And there's a beauty in it while you're going through it that becomes, like I told you, a little addicting. Like, you know what? The darkness, kind of, the shade is not so bad either.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing your experience.
You're so welcome.
Yeah. Oh, well, I would just love to hear if you have anything coming up in your business, anything you want to share with the people about how to stay connected with you, or
your
offerings.
Absolutely. So right now I am in this beginning phases of starting to really want to grow this community. So I have some little classes coming up, in the future that I'm putting together, Ask an Angel, where people just do this group channeling where everyone can just come in or send me an email with your question beforehand, and I'm going to go through and start answering some of these burning questions that people have. I also offer private sessions where I do this exact thing. I offer now a half-hour session where you could just, if you need to get quick, to the point of hearing what's, divine, getting some divine guidance. But mostly, if you can get to my site and join my mailing list, I think that's going to be the best way to stay connected, and that we can start to grow together. So I'm assuming you'll have it's www.themodernmagdalene.com, and I'm sure they'll be able to find that with this podcast as well. Mm-hmm. And basically for right now, I just love you to get connected, get on my website. Let's start a dialogue, and let me be introduced to you and get to know who you are. And let's start walking into the light together from here on out.
So beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any closing words for the people listening before I say a prayer to end this?
No, you know what? What I would love to say is, well, first of all, thank you for this experience. Anytime I get to do a podcast and I get to, preach for a little while, I get so excited. It's always the morning of beautiful self-care, because you have to get yourself in the best space. Yeah. So thanks for allowing me to be the voice today, or be a voice today on your podcast and your platform. I greatly appreciate it. And I just want to encourage everybody to take this, moving into this realm one step at a time. Allow a lot of beautiful ritual and ceremony into your life. That doesn't mean you have to stop your day every day and I have to do an hour ritual. Make cooking your dinner a ritual. Light some candles. Put some music on. Put a little bit of oil on, maybe where you put some perfume behind your ears, on your wrists. Cook some beautiful food. Sing a song. Dance around a little bit. Do something very feminine. Just start to incorporate ritual and ceremony into your life and beauty into your life. And I promise you, one step at a time, you're going to start feeling really compelled to live from a new perspective and to really just get bored and old with the old stuff that's holding you back and be able to really just easily walk forward. I'm just very adamant about inspiring people to take that first leap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it just starts with the little choices and the little ways that we can hold ourselves and even our mundane daily tasks as sacred.
I agree.
So let's take a moment to center back in, to just bring all of this wisdom that's been shared into the heart. It's welcoming ourselves fully into this space and honoring and whatever gems are here with us today, to just hold that with us as we go out into our world, into our lives. And we take this information and integrate it and use it and allow it to move through us and in our life. May it ripple out to all the people around us. So I'll bring my hands to my heart and just with gratitude for everyone listening, for being here, gratitude especially for Lisa and all that she shared with us today. Namaste.
Namaste.
Thanks so much for taking the time to listen to our show today. We would love to hear what you think. Take a moment to hop on over to iTunes and leave us a review. We'd be so grateful to receive it. Until next time, namaste.